So, a while ago, an artist I really liked sent me a message asking me how I write jokes. And they were saying they were having trouble figuring out like how the pieces fit together. And so I started trying to write back, and I realized like number one, I realized I'm not good at writing. So, hopefully this works better. But also I realized it's not quite as simple as I thought it was because I had never actually thought about it. So I figured what I would do is try to make a video that I could send to them and try to explain what it is I'm doing and, you know, maybe share it with other people too. So what I wanted to do was take some examples of jokes in other comics and show them to you and try to explain what it is that's making them funny in hopes that seeing the structure of them will give you kind of the internal math of how it works. I wanted to use examples from a book I did called Please Destroy My Enemies, which I actually don't have in the office, so I'll put it right here. I was going to use some examples from Calvin and Hobbes. It's probably one of the only comics I read before I started making comics. This book I actually got when I was like 9 or 10. It's pretty beat up. And then I was also going to use some examples from a book that I'm kind of working on, but it's basically just all sketches and writing. So I was hoping I could actually show you more of the process a little bit earlier on. One of the first things that I thought about when writing that I kind of got into a little too deep is trying to figure out what humor or comedy is. I thought it was really simple when I first started. I thought, oh, this is going to be a quick email. You know, I'm going to be like, this is what it is. This is how you do it. And I ended up spending a lot of time thinking about it. But so first, what I want to talk about is what is humor. I'm not really sure what it is, and I don't think anyone else is. I checked Google. Turns out a lot of people have a lot of ideas. I think what I think humor is it's two things. It's either all humor is either misdirection or it's confirmation. And I think good humor is both. But what those are is misdirection is essentially, it's anything behaving in a way that you do not expect. So, one of the reasons farts are always funny is there's almost, sorry, but people use fart jokes is because there's almost no situation in which you would expect someone to fart. So, you can kind of plug that joke in anywhere and it works. I don't think it works that well and you get over it, but, with misdirection also, the more unlikely an event is to happen and you can make it to happen and you can make it happen, the funnier it's going to be. So with, sorry, I'm using an example with fart jokes, the less appropriate and less likely someone is to fart in a situation, the funnier it's going to be. Someone in the bathroom farting on the toilet isn't really that funny. However, you're watching a sitcom and someone farts at a funeral or, farts in a lawyer's office, somewhere that's very serious, that's misdirection. And then what confirmation is, or what I think it is it's when a joke reveals something to the audience that they either know to be true and believe to be true, or in really good examples, like we'll see with Calvin and Hobbes, reveals something to the audience that they knew to be true, but they did not believe it to be true, or they did not know they knew it was true. I actually think that's what really sticks with people, is when, as a writer, you can point something out that somebody knew, but they didn't know they knew. I'm trying to think. I also kind of started thinking about what humor was for. It's really weird to me that we've got these physical responses to things that are sort of embedded in us, and it feels really strange that like we would laugh at these things, and like it feels like, with everything we do, there's a reason. You do certain things to get attention from potential mates. You do things to get food. What I think humor is probably for is to either quell anxieties or it's to teach people how to behave in society. A lot of humor that is of more of a confirmation type is political in nature or social in nature. And so also those jokes only work for people who believe what, the joke is stating, but what it's saying is like, this is how you behave. And a lot of humor involves somebody behaving inappropriately, in a way that, the joke tends to highlight that this is not the way we behave, or, it's inappropriate to behave this way. It's kind of boring, not really interesting, but I've actually been thinking a lot about it, and like I've been thinking about this. I've been trying to write about this for like 6 months, and it's just not been happening. So hopefully this will. So I'm going to show some examples and try to walk through it. Hopefully it makes some sort of sense, and hopefully this video is good. Yeah. Okay, so this first strip I'm going to look at is from my book Please Destroy My Enemies. It's a bunch of kind of not really connected gags, kind of like The Far Side, if you're familiar with kind of older American newspaper comics. The Far Side's actually a super good strip. If you're interested in writing comedy for comics, I would highly suggest checking it out. So this is just sort of a standalone gag. It's not part of a story, but I chose this one because I think it, the gag is very visual. And I think one of the big problems people have when they're writing comics is, they're writing words and it's very funny, but you also have images, and a lot of the times people don't, use the images, and it's a visual thing, so you have to write visually a lot of the time. So what's happening here is in the first panel, these two guys, they're looking at a painting that's in their house. It's crooked, so you're setting up kind of a problem. A lot of the times when you're writing a joke, you want to set up a problem because you need something for the characters to do, and because that's what makes stories interesting, is some sort of conflict or the overcoming of an obstacle. Even really simple stuff like this picture frame's crooked. So then there's the second panel. They're trying to adjust it. He's shifting around the bookshelf, like they're sweating. They're not having a good time. You're increasing conflict. Third panel, hold it. I think we've got it. They've got it. He's like up on the shelf. They're really trying hard. The last panel, you see, it's not straight because, it's, the panel is showing the room is crooked. So they've made it straight, but only to the orientation of the panel, not to the actual room they're in. So it's, the joke here is almost entirely visual based on, if you had written this joke on paper, it's not really going to work. And I actually don't think it's the strongest gag anyway, but this is one of my favorite comics I've drawn. But so when you're drawing, making a comic, you want to set up a conflict, and this is misdirection. You think the joke's going to be about them straightening the frame, and it kind of is, but the gag is that, it's not lined up right. Alright, for the second strip I'm showing you from this book, I've actually chosen a strip with the same characters. I'm not actually even sure I intended to draw the same people, but it's not really that important. There's just these dummies. So what's happening is there's these guys, first panel, walking into this place, very dark. They've got a flashlight. This urban exploration is just radical. I think a lot of people have trouble coming up with ideas. And I don't actually think not having an idea isn't really a real thing, because everything you do is an idea because you have a brain. So I don't have an idea is an idea. Write a joke about not having ideas. But here I'm sort of talking about something that I'm specifically interested in. I think if you deal with topics, that and like, you're gonna have a better time. Things are gonna be easier. It's just gonna be more fun for you, and you should always do what's fun for you. So here, this urban exploration is just radical. That's something that I've been interested in. Not really in an urban exploration kind of way, but just going in places. Then they're like, can you believe that people just up and left it like this? Because if you've been in abandoned places, like, it's kind of amazing what you can find in there. Lots of old books. People will just leave records, like social security numbers in hospitals. Also like stuff that people after it was abandoned left in there. Like once I found the remains of a birthday party in like the 14th floor of like something that I guess used to be a warehouse in the middle of Philadelphia. I'm only saying this to sort of illustrate like these things that are happening in my jokes. It's not just the joke. Like these are, when you're writing jokes, you're sort of talking about your experiences, and this joke seems simple and stupid and whatever, but I'm basically regurgitating, my life over and over in these weird ways. But so the third panel, what are you kids doing in my office? Are those my files? It turns out, they're not, it's not urban exploration. They're just morons. They've walked into a closed office building, and they end up arrested. The joke seems kind of like, linear, like, oh, he just wrote a sequence of events, but like, the sort of interesting thing with jokes is a lot of the times it's just, this is basically something that's happened to me. And I'm, talking about how much of a moron I am, so that's that joke. I think this is mostly misdirection because, you're setting it up to, this urban exploration is radical, and it turns out it's not urban exploration. They're just morons. And then, I think, there's conflict because, they've suffered some sort of penalty. They're under arrest in this last panel. But also the drawing is funny because they're cute. Yeah. You're talking to the person. And, it's really more about having a conversation with your reader. If it can be really funny, that's good. But, that's not always what we're looking for. So this starts with them, they're laying down looking at the sky. What a pretty sky today. Like, it's too blue, it needs some red, he says. Hobbs is like, red? He's like, just a little over there, hang on. He goes away, he comes back, and, they're flying a kite. I think this is really strong for a lot of reasons, even though it's not particularly funny. It's funny, but it's not the type of funny that I think people are always going for, and I think stuff like this sometimes is missed on people. Number one, I think it's really strong because in the last panel, the gag is purely visual. There's no saying, let's do this, and then there's a kite in the sky. It's, you draw the kite in the sky. You show the character's response to it. I really think stuff like this is undervalued for newer people, and it's certainly something that I have gotten more into as I've gone. I'm not even, there's not really much misdirection here, which is neat. It's mostly, confirmation, and it's confirmed, like, that, like, flying a kite with your friends is cool. Like, that's the idea here. Like, you and your friend should be flying a kite, and that's fucking awesome. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on YouTube, but I guess I can. So, don't always worry about the gag being strong or there being something that makes you, like, piss your pants with laughter, because, like, this is just as important as any other joke. Is, flying a kite with your friend is great, and that's such, like, a simple idea. And I think people overlook stuff like that a lot, and I think that's one of the reasons Calvin Hobbes is such, like, a beautiful and memorable strip. So here's another strip that I think is good from this book. So it starts off with Calvin yelling, "I'm in a very crabby mood, so everybody just leave me alone. I hate everyone." He's being grumbly, like, he's looking around. It says, "Nobody recognizes my hints to smother me with affection." So this is misdirection because, like, this, it's both misdirection and confirmation, because the misdirection is, that's not, you would not expect someone saying, I hate everyone to be wanting attention. So that's the misdirection. But it's also confirmation because this is something that I think we all do. And, it's it's showing us, like, it's sort of a mirror that we see ourselves in. Sometimes we act like dicks when all we want is to be nice. And also, it's kind of showing back to the, like, how to behave in society. Like, it's trying to reiterate to you, like, this isn't really how you get attention and affection. This is actually a very bad way to do it. And, hopefully, you see this when you're doing this, because, I know this is something I do. This is definitely something my girlfriend does. And, it never works out in the way we're expecting. So, it's a good joke. So just like, but like, as you're experiencing things, write them down and like think about them. Because like I'm assuming this was he either saw someone, he probably saw a child or a person behaving this way, and thought to himself like, that's a terrible way to do that, and that's a comic. I think a lot more of these things, like jokes in comics, are observed than a lot of people who don't write realize. Like pretty much any joke I have involving children in my comics, I have a strip called Please Keep Warm. There's a younger character named Clover who's throwing temper tantrums, becoming interested in things like children do, and it's all from me observing my sister's children and hanging out with my nieces. I would say a lot of the funniest things are just direct quotes from them, or taking direct quotes and like really exaggerating them. Like one of them's mad about something. Say they're mad that they can't play with a knife. Clearly they can't play with a knife. But with humor, if you exaggerate things, being mad that you can't play with a priceless relic that's in the house is funnier than not being able to play with a knife. It's the same joke, but you can just exaggerate it. A lot of the times when I'm having trouble with a joke where I like the drawing or I like the joke or the situation, but it's not quite clicking, what I'll do is I'll look at the joke and see, if there's anything I can exaggerate or stretch, so like that, if the joke is like, oh, I want to play with a knife, that's not actually that funny, but having a character, watching like holding onto a priceless antique momentarily, and the kid's like, I never get to do anything, that's a joke. And that's, it's a lot of what's funny is talking about what's real and what's actually happening. So, I just keep those things in mind. So here's a bunch of stuff I've written over the last month or two, just in my free time for the next Please Destroy My Enemies books. A lot of it has actually been written while thinking about some of the stuff that I've been trying to write, so hopefully it'll be a little better. It's kind of hard to sort through it. Let me see if I can find a good joke somewhere. Yeah, basically, as I'm writing, these are from, a trip I went to New York to hang out with my friend Robin Rico, who's a very good cartoonist. But, I'm just sitting, I was on the bus for 4 hours, always have a sketchbook with me. I was just drawing 4 panels and just banging information in. I don't think a lot of the jokes really work, but a lot of them could work with a little bit of, finessing. This is one I like. Let me see if there's any others. Oh, this is one that I wrote on the bus that I think is good. So actually I'm just going to do these two. It'll be easier, but for every joke I draw, I might do this one too. I think that's pretty funny. For every joke I draw, I'll probably write, 3 or 4. And I think a lot of people actually write a lot more than they draw. But so, this is the first. It's going to be kind of hard to see what's going on, but I'll try to explain it. So this is someone preparing for a trip. So I put A1 here. This ride is going to be really long. This bus ride is going to be really long, but it's the perfect opportunity to do some free writing on my novel. So this character, I'm showing a problem. They're clearly working on a novel. And they finally have a batch of time to work on it. If you're watching this video, you probably understand the scenario. So B, what's B? I didn't write down what it was, but sometimes I'll just have a space, or I was probably like, also maybe finally read that Haruki Murakami book I was trying to get to, because we all have books that we're trying to read. You got free time, perfect time to do it. This is the last panel, they're walking out the door. Whoops, almost forgot my phone. And then the last panel is them on the bus. They're writing in their lap, unattended. You know, their novel that they're supposed to be reading, and they're dicking off on their phone. This was actually written on the bus ride. I saw this person doing this, and I think one of the things that I've been really focusing on as I've been thinking is, as someone's reading, or even as I'm writing, like, what is important that we don't know is important. And so many people are spending so much time on their fucking phones. I actually, at the time of this writing, I was using a Razer flip phone, just to try to regain some of my time and attention. But like, this is something I think is really topical right now. Is we have all these things we want to do, but we're spending so much time looking at our Instagrams when we have hours to work on them. And also, there's always time. Like, you've got little time. Like, on that bus ride that I watched this person dick off on their phone with their sketchbook in their lap and their novel there for 4.5 hours at least. And, I wrote, a lot of them aren't going to be used, but I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That doesn't count. Bad, but 11 strips, and so that's what the joke is, trying to present some sort of important information. It's misdirection because you think the person's going to work on it, and the confirmation is this is how we are, and it's pretty ridiculous. This joke is a man talking to his child at an art museum where there's a comic, just a museum in general. The comics on the wall. He's talking to his child, and he says, people used to draw stories in little boxes, and they called them comics. And, so showing in history, him continuing to talk to his child, he says, the people who drew them were called cartoonists, and they had no money, and they were very sad. If you're a cartoonist, you'd probably understand that. And then his child's looking to him and he says, what happened to the sad cartoonists? And then he says, they all died, sad, alone, stupid, and covered in dirt. Every last one of them. It's actually a little darker than I usually write. But, it's sort of, I'm talking about my experiences making comics. This is a very common scenario. It's a person taking their child to a museum. It's strange because there's a comic on the wall. So into the future, I'm talking about the thing the person's reading, and you don't expect something in a museum to have been made by someone who died alone, but that's also, that's something historical about painting. This isn't something I take seriously. I don't take the idea of art very seriously, but comics are, art historically, a lot of people have died completely unappreciated and alone. Like Van Gogh, and now their work is very important. And today, a lot of cartoonists have the idea that we're very, nobody cares about comics. I actually think people love comics. This isn't a mentality I share, but also people dying, stupid, alone, covered in dirt, every last one of them is, I guess, what people assume is going to happen. I think we're fine. But so, and then here's another joke. Let me see if there's anything else in here. There's a lot of stuff here. Yeah, that last one, I'm writing about things that people talk about. A lot of my friends talk about, art and whether art is important or comics. So really just the things in your life that you're dealing with can all be made into humor. And the trick is to find the twist on them, or either twist them or, just talk to people about what you think is true. And the people who also agree with you are going to be really excited to see that. Sorry, I'm burping sometimes. Drink 6 cans of seltzer a day. I hope that's okay for me. So this is the last one I'm going to look at. This is a guy talking to somebody hey Sue, what's your favorite Beatle? This is, everyone's always talking about the Beatles, the differences in the Beatles. At this point, it's there was just a I guess they remastered one of the things. People have been talking about the Beatles. There's been more discussion. You know, people like Paul more. Personally, I'm a Paul man. I like my music listenable. I'm not particularly interested in whether it's art or not. I think Band on the Run is probably the best song Paul McCartney ever wrote. Please don't write me emails about that. Follows up the girls dousing herself in gasoline, setting herself on fire. And then, you know, he's talking to her skull and her pile of ashes. He's like, I think Paul was the real backbone of the group. You know, this is sort of confirmation to everyone who's tired of hearing about the Beatles. Like, I'd rather set myself on fire than talk about the Beatles. You know, so you just visually represent that feeling. And, you know, the more someone has those feelings, the more they're going to identify with it. That's that. Hopefully that was good. So if you were someone who was trying to write jokes for comics, you have, even if not an understanding about it, maybe like a little more confidence in trying. Pretty much everything you do in life, you do by doing badly until you get better. So really, if you want to be funny, you know, you're going to get funnier as you do it, and you know, really, I think everything is about doing the work. I really haven't thought much about this. I've just sort of plunged headlong into it from the very beginning. And I've been getting funnier over time because I'm always thinking, you know, how do I make this funnier? I don't think I'm the best cartoonist, but I'm definitely a lot better than I was before. So, you know, maybe just actually make stuff and stop watching YouTube videos about how to make it. Yeah. If you like this, maybe follow me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm at Please Keep Warm. I have lots of comics and books you can read on the internet. And if you really like them on the internet, you can get physical ones. There's a bunch of those. Yeah, hopefully this was good. Thank you for watching.